Sekeres Price for Thursday, May 2nd, 2024, coming to you from the Nation Network studio built by Arbor Lee here at the iconic Wall Center, downtown Vancouver. If you're going to a game, an event downtown, make it a staycation. Call the Wall, 604-331-1000. Ask for the Sekeres Price rates. Some blackout dates apply. Matt Sekeres alongside Blake Price. Grady Sass hitting switches, conducting things with Sean Chessman. Big show coming up, and it's all brought to you by Applewood Auto Group.
Applewood Nissan in Surrey has the 2024 Leaf. You know the Leaf. It's one of the pioneers of the electric revolution. Get one for $83 weekly with a rebate of $5,000 plus another $4,000, and you only have to put $39.99 down. Never been a better time to jump into a 2024 Leaf at Applewood Nissan in Surrey. It's all good at Applewood.
Poll question today: whose stock has changed the most in the Canucks Predators series? Philip Hronek, stock down. Elias Pettersson, stock down. Artur Shilov's, stock up. Nikita Zadorov, stock up. You can vote at Sekeres Price on Twitter and YouTube. I'm in the minority here, but I voted Shilov's. And of course, it could all change depending on what happens in Game 6 and Game 7 if necessary. Smallest sample, so I think he had the most to gain going in. And based on the way he's performed through a couple of games here, and of course we saw snippets of him in the last two regular seasons, I feel comfortable with him being the NHL backup next season. And I'm not necessarily sure that that was cemented or in stone. In fact, I'm still not sure it's cemented or in stone. But to me, that's a significant move up for the young man. The others were talking about either a few dollars here or there, or we're talking about just a summer of hand-wringing about Elias Pettersson. So I voted Shilov.
Well, and in the end, too, if you're going to point forward like that, I mean, Shilov probably gets $1 million a year next year. He needs a new contract, but it's probably no more than $1 million. DeSmith, after a nice outing this season at 1.8, he's probably going to look for 2.5 from somebody. You're saving yourself $1.5 million on the cap, and that's a great spot to do it for Artur Shilov. So I see that, although it may not be for the Canucks, but I think Nikita Zadorov's stock is just too good to ignore.
He certainly made himself some money here.
Yeah.
We talked to Frank Saravelli on Wednesday's program about Hronek, and he said, well, it doesn't really affect the ARB case much. I don't think Philip Hronek has necessarily cost himself all that much money, although I think, if anything, the second half of the season might have cost Philip Hronek a little more money, less so than his performance in these playoffs.
But
and
hockey men, though, Matt. Like, people say, well, it's only five to 7 games in a series. Like, is that really going to affect the rest of the sample size? Hockey men, when they see a guy that can't perform come playoff time, that affects how much money they want to give said player.
Yeah, but I also know the scarcity of top 4 right shot defensemen, and I think that is a huge trump
There's
card.
pros, there's cons.
Whatever hockey men, their tendencies. It's his first Stanley Cup playoffs, Hronek. He had not played a Stanley Cup playoff game until game 1 of this series. It's clear he has struggled some. Hasn't put up points, but that was an extension. It's almost like the Elias Pettersson story. I mean, that is somewhat of an extension of his second half. In Pettersson's case, more like the last quarter of the season. And really, when you take a look at the Vancouver Canucks, their inability to score, their inability to put pucks on net in this series, a lot of that, and we covered it on Wednesday's show, is they are a winger or two short. That is just not a strong position group for them. They don't have dynamic players there for the most part. And that's coming to light in this series, but also, Philip Hronek has got to be a scoring defenseman alongside just being a defensive defenseman. He was that for the first half of the year when they were winning a bunch of games and scoring a bunch of goals. His production is down, as is the Vancouver Canucks. It's not coincidental. Those two things are connected.
Yeah. I mean, there's a whole bunch of reasons why the Canucks can't score and can't get shots on goal, but there's a few lightning rods that are getting a lot of the attention and a few catalysts that aren't being the catalysts that they should be. So, although as we get closer to the top story here,
yes,
the head coach isn't doing much to change that.
Yeah, it brings us to our top story, brought to you by Mr. Lube. Same old, same old. The Vancouver Canucks practice with the same line combinations and the same defense pairs. Blake Price, is it time for Rick Tocchet to make some kind of adjustment in this series?
Matt, as we got set for this first playoff series for the Vancouver Canucks in what feels like a lifetime, one of the biggest things we heard was the keys to victory, adjustments in series. There have been none from this Canucks head coach.
I mean, there's been the occasional glimpse at the lotto line. There's been an occasional shuffling of the lines in game, but
Garland for Lindholm on power play,
not particularly pronounced. Yeah, one power play change, and frankly, I think they started with the wrong setup with Garland there instead of Lindholm. Lindholm's been good in this series.
Top story brought to you by Mr. Lube. Need a tire change or tire service? Mr. Lube provides no appointment tire service and sales drop by any time for tire rotation, tire repair, and balancing, servicing all makes and models, including electric vehicles. 16 locations in the Lower Mainland for one near you. Go to MrLube.com.
Well, we finally got a game time late yesterday afternoon from the National Hockey League with regards to Game 6 at the Bridgestone Arena in Nashville. It's a 4 p.m. Pacific start. We're going to be at Greta Bar, 50 West Cordovas. Come join us as we take in the festivities. 92 shots through 5 games. It's the second fewest through 5 games in Stanley Cup playoff history. And then did everybody see Harmon Dial's tweet with regards to the two catalysts in this series being JT Miller and Quinn Hughes? Read it now. This from the co-host of Canucks Conversation, athletic writer Harmon Dial. The Canucks have only generated 24 shots on goal, 10.5 shots per 60, and just 2 goals this entire series, 0.88 goals per hour, when JT Miller and Quinn Hughes are on the bench. Getting more offense from non-Miller Hughes minutes is a must. That confirms the eye test for me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the guys who seem to be shouldering the load on the eye test is Quinn Hughes and JT Miller. And JT Miller's been blessed with what we think is almost 100% health. We haven't heard or there's not been any insinuation of injury for JT Miller. Quinn Hughes is doing this on what might be a bruised and battered body. But yeah, can somebody else please take some of the load? Goaltenders have done their job. Hughes and Miller. I don't know if there's any other like full grades, A scale grades on the Vancouver Canucks. Zadorov, maybe, I guess.
Zadorov. I think Shilov's is close to an A grade, if not there.
Always, yeah.
And JT Miller. I would consider Brock. I mean, needless to say, the hat trick in Game 4.
That was an A+ game for sure. Yeah,
but I'm not sure it's been an A series for Besser.
Yeah,
he's got 4 goals in the series. He's done well.
He's got better grades than most, but
way better than most.
Yeah.
He's probably the number 3 skater. Although I think Lindholm is somewhere in that group as well.
He's been good.
Yeah.
But no, very few
Joshua was great
games.
in Game 1, but it is, it's been, and of course they scored the game winner in Game 4. They set up the game winner from Lindholm, Garland, and Joshua, but it hasn't been consistent enough for that line that we were calling the best third line in hockey at different points.
LDJ on YouTube. Seriously, fans are the worst. Let's turn on the coach who took a garbage team and made them a division winner. No one's calling him a garbage coach. No. It's a nuance here within a series. It's a short sample size. Every single thing means a lot more. You after 7 games of a regular season, you're not getting this kind of critique. Who cares? You got 75 more games in which to iron X issue out. You don't have that here. No. So when you don't make that adjustment, it means that much more. It's under a magnifying glass. He did a wonderful job over an 82-game season. But much like players can sometimes be categorized as regular season players, you don't want to be a coach that can't win in the playoffs. And sports is littered with coaches that have that reputation. Tocchet doesn't have that. Again, step away from the ledge. Tocchet doesn't have that. But you don't want him to become that guy. And the way you don't become that guy is you make adjustments and you pull all the triggers and push all the buttons that you need to get the most out of your team.
I think the point is if you blow a 3-1 series lead and lose this thing in 7, running out the same lines and same defense pairings, there is going to be recriminations.
What are you going to say you did?
There is going to be
to
a
facilitate change
post-mortem where I think everybody's going to look around and say, yeah, we could have done this, could have done that. Now, in Tocchet's case, he had coached just 9 playoff games prior to this season, so he's relatively new to the Stanley Cup playoffs with the big whistle at the very least. And we'll see if anything is in store by way of surprise for tomorrow in Game 6. It is conceivable. This is smokescreen season. This is lying season. It is conceivable that you trot out your same lineup for the practice that you know the Nashville Predators are looking at. But come tomorrow, you throw a curveball and see if Andrew Brunette, after all his planning and how he's going to go about line matching, okay, here you go, Andrew. It's going to be a little different. What are you going to do with not a lot of notice and not a lot of time to plan it out? We shall see.
To be fair to the commenter, he was saying that more about fans than us two in particular.
Well,
but it still stands. It still stands to reason, regardless who's saying it.
If we have fans saying this hasn't been Tocchet's Mona Lisa, I concur with that.
Mm-hmm.
Again, best coach in the regular season, absolutely should, and I think will win the Jack Adams Trophy. Doesn't mean he's infallible. So yeah, we've for a week now been talking. Do you go to a lot of line? I think that's something that still has to be considered in this series.
Yeah, one nuance
Elias is giving you nothing in the middle. Why not put him on a wing with better players and see if that can generate something over a sustained period? Not a shift here, a shift there, but something a little more consistent.
We'll dive in deep with Jeff a little bit later on possible lineup combinations. But one little nuance I wanted to deal with here is the Lotto line, as we knew it, hasn't seen any action at all, which is Elias Pettersson down the middle. And it seems counterintuitive to give him the more responsibility because he's not the one that's driving right now. But I do wonder, with 2 legitimate targets flanking him, would that be the catalyst? So that if we're talking, is going to go back to those 3 guys, why not try it with Pettersson down the middle? Let's just see if lightning strikes there.
And the 2 existing wingers he has currently in Ilya Mikheyev and Nils Höglander,
May
not
never,
exactly pulling their weight.
May never score again.
No.
So
it has been a rude awakening for Höglander in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And Mikheyev is just continuing with what we saw for more than half a season.
Offense goes to die when the puck hits his stick.
And Tocchet was having a long chat with Pettersson at the end of practice here today.
He does that often.
Yeah, he is. He's trying to. I mean, he's doing that part of the coaching for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And they did a ton on power play today again as well. So I mean, no one's saying Tocchet's not coaching. He is, but there's one really tangible adjustment, and that is lineup changes. They can have a profound effect on a team, and he hasn't gone to that lever yet.
Adam Kimmelman reporting that Nashville Predators defenseman Luke Schenn looks like he is going to return for Game 6. Of course, the former Vancouver Canuck, Kelowna resident, replaced by Victoria's Tyson Barrie in Game 5 here at Rogers Arena on Tuesday. In Schenn's case, he just had a 24-hour flu bug, or at least so he said. Quote, I had the flu in Game 1 and I ended up playing and I got this. I don't even know if it's the flu, but whatever. It was 8-9 days later, but 10 times worse. Luke, that sounds like COVID to me, bro.
Yeah, could be.
Could very well be.
Yeah.
Anyways, suspect that Luke Schenn will return to the Nashville Predators lineup. And there is hilarity at Vancouver Canucks practice. And the straw that stirs the drink, none other than JT Miller.
Yeah.
He emerged in what we all first thought was a practice jersey. And on closer inspection, and with the reporting of Dan Murphy on site,
It's a Paisley practice jersey. Or was it?
it's a dress shirt that belongs to Artur Shilovs.
Keeping it light.
You know what? I'm here for it because, something like that to just take away some of the nerves and to keep it light, as you say, Grady. And I'm here for it. I hope JT put a couple hundy in the stall for Artur Shilovs to buy him a new dress shirt, because I don't know that dress shirt is bouncing back to its original size.
No. Nor do I think it's pret-a-porter tonight.
No.
Ready to wear?
No. It probably needs a good launder.
Yes.
If
Very
it's wearable.
fashionable. I'm sure it's I'm sure they love it on they love it on the runways of Paris and Milan.
Nikita Zadorov, I'm sure, endorsed the fashion statement.
He has an opinion on it. That much we know.
Yeah. But honestly, I love it, and I wouldn't do this on a game day skate, but on a practice on the off day, I see nothing wrong with this, and good for Miller. Again, this is part of the transformation of JT Miller from swearing angry guy to the guy that's now trying to, take away some of the edge here and get guys back to being themselves.
And it just so happens that JT Miller's been in the middle of teammate hijinks in the past. And in fact, on the
good segue.
receiving end. This from our colleagues, Johnny Lazarus, Keith Yandel at Morning Cup of Hockey. Yandel telling a story about a young JT Miller with the Rangers. Take a listen, and those of you on YouTube can watch it as well.
You don't want. Did you steal Kevin Hayes' car while he was in an exit meeting in New York or something and leave it on the West Side Highway? What is that story?
JT Miller's. At the end of the year, your year-end meetings, it goes in order of seniority. And we had St. Louis, Dan Boyle, we had, a ton of guys. And I was probably maybe 7 or 8 down. Rick Nash was on there. So I came in and Nasher was waiting, and I'm like, what are you waiting for? You're Rick Nash. He was like, oh, Millsy's in there. I was like, what? He was a rookie. Yeah. And I love Mills. Millsy's one of my all-time favorite teammates. I love him. He was like, yeah, Millsy's in there. Apparently he's got to get home. And I'm like, get home. The guy lives in East Palestine, Ohio. What does he need to get home to? So he was like, I'm like, what does this hillbilly need to get home for? His car's right outside, still running. His car is still running, all this stuff in there. So I just went in. I'm like, Hazy, grab your car, follow me. I jumped in and we drove it. I think he had a Dodge Durango or something. It was a soccer mom's car. He was 20 years old. It was great. But yeah, I think he learned his lesson.
Oh, that's good stuff. Soccer mom car.
There's so many things to unpack there. Number one, why would you leave it running?
Yeah,
how's the car still running?
I'm all for being in a rush, but the amount of extra time to turn the car off and lock it so that it's there when you come back.
Or so someone doesn't steal it.
Yeah.
Secondly,
he was a kid, though.
I hope he knows that Vancouver has a no idling policy, JT. Secondly, do you not have to allow for the possibility that coach may want to talk to me for 15, 20 minutes, something like that? You can let the car run for that long?
But 20-year-old JT Miller, you're fresh out of college for some junior hockey. You don't even know how to pay the cell phone bill, for heaven's sake, right? So things like turning off the car and locking it, maybe a bit of a reach. Anyhow, he came, and honestly, these two incidents might be related. Hijinks in sports has been forever, but you have a moment like that when you're a newbie in the NHL, okay, sometime I'm going to be the veteran and sometime I'm going to do something to keep it light, albeit this was an exit meeting. Season was over for the Rangers.
Soccer mom's car.
Yeah, the Durango went through some tough times. There was a time when the Durango was a good looking car, but yeah.
He has drove him some minivans over the years.
Well, Durango wasn't a minivan, but it started to look like a minivan at one point. Yeah.
The Edmonton Oilers are through. They await the winner of the Nashville Predators Vancouver Canucks series. The Oilers beat the LA Kings in 5 games. Last season, they beat them in 6 games. The year before, they beat them in 7 games. So
sweeping next year?
The Oilers are getting better, or the Kings are getting worse. But needless to say, I think you have to look in the mirror if you're LA and ask yourself some tough questions. Perhaps starting with, why didn't we get a goaltender this year?
Yeah.
The Kings and head coach Jim Hiller mentioned it after the fact. The story was very easy to write in this series. special teams. Oilers power play connected at 45%, and they were perfect on the penalty kill. Kings not a single power play goal in this series, and the penalty kill just above 50%. That's not going to win in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And so you wonder what's going to happen with the Kings this offseason. I suspect they're going to try and reconstitute their club somewhat. I think that Brant Clark, their fine young right shot defenseman, is going to make his way up and be a full-time NHLer. I think you're looking for increasing improvement from Quentin Byfield and some of the young players. We'll see what the Kings do beyond that. They've been active the last couple of off seasons with some trades. So we'll see what awaits the Canucks and the rest of the Pacific Division from that outfit next season. But I have to think a disappointing year for the Kings to once again bow out in the first round and bow out in even fewer games than they have in each of the previous.
They ultimately turned to David Riddick to try to save the series.
And that's not
good either.
Big Save Dave is not your answer.
They were up 2-1.
Small save.
They were up 2-1, and Big Save Dave looked like he had come up with a big save on Leon Draisaitl. But we have probably seen the last of Big Save Dave using white gloves. He reaches back, makes the save, but 80% of the glove is clearly inside the net, but you get a little sneak peek of the puck through the webbing. And apparently that's what ultimately made the call, is it? Because you do need to still prove, because theoretically, if you look at the save from the above ankle, if the puck happened to be right in the heel of the hand, it wouldn't have been all the way over. But you can sort of catch a glimpse of it through the webbing. So if it's a fully black glove, you probably see nothing of it in the webbing. And they would probably just say, hey, intellectually, we know it's probably in, but we have no proof of it. And we've seen that before with goaltenders having it in their pads as well. But look for David Riddick, if he is back in the NHL next season, to be wearing black gloves.
White glove, white netting.
David Riddick is not David Copperfield. He doesn't just make the puck go away.
No.
This has been a thing for years in the NFL. Offensive linemen love it when they're playing a defense that are in the black jerseys, because they put the black gloves on and then it's harder to see holding.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Have I ever told you my David Copperfield story before?
No. Today's
a
good day for David Copperfield.
I once was only once have I seen David Copperfield, was at the Queenie Theater here. And I got called on stage.
You're kidding me.
Like, he threw frisbees at whoever caught it, got on stage. My 12-year-old cousin got it. And so he's like, I don't want to go up. So he gives it to me. I'm like, I don't really want to go up either. But okay. So I go up, and we held a vehicle. Like, there was like 10 of us on each side, 20 of us. We didn't really have to hold it up. It was on a stage of some sort, but we had our hands on the vehicle. And it disappeared. And I don't have any freaking clue where it went.
You can attest.
I was there. I was touching the vehicle.
Were you looking at the vehicle?
I think they think we had our hands on the undercarriage.
Okay.
And then they draped a blanket over top of it, maybe.
Yeah.
And then it disappeared. And I don't know where it went. I was there. I was an inch away from it. I have no idea where it went.
Did that change you?
No, it didn't. But it does make me think, how did they do that? How did they do that?
I'm past the point. I see these illusionists. We were in Vegas last month. Of course, there's a lot of them there.
Yeah.
And I'm at the point where it's just too much for me.
It is. It's a little
I don't even want to. I want to use my brain power, limited as it may be, elsewhere, not on trying to figure out the illusions.
How much extra money would they make, all of these illusionists, if after the thing they're like, for $500 a person, you can come back and you can see how we do all of them? They would make money on that.
At one point, there was a show with Penn and Teller where they figure,
they figure everybody else's illusions out. Yeah, but they don't reveal them. They just say, "We know how you did this."
But there's just a car. It's not easy to make a car disappear. Where does the car go? You're sure the car was there, right? You were touching the car. Yeah. Sure you weren't touching something that wasn't a car made to feel like a car?
It looked like a car. It felt like a car. I won't tell you. And it was gone.
What kind of car?
I don't remember. It's a good question.
There is a car in the bowels of the Queen Elizabeth Theater. David Copperfield wants it back. Good story, Blake.
Yeah.
The Abbotsford Canucks fell in game 1 of their best of 5 AHL Calder Cup playoff series down in Ontario on Wednesday. They lost 3-1. Zach Sawchenko needed 18 saves. Max Lapierre, the only goal scorer there.
Did you happen
They
to
will
see
host game 3, but they, of course, need to win one in Ontario to make it go beyond game 3. Sorry. Go ahead.
At Cody Severson, who writes for Canucks Army, of course. Pod Colson drove to the net enough times in one AHL playoff game to convince me that he's being wasted in the AHL. Call him up. Club needs more north-south players with a will to go to the net. Too much perimeter play in Vancouver.
He played with John Stevens and Archie Baines. It was his first game at any level since April 18th.
4 shots and an assist.
He got an assist?
Yeah.
I saw a Sasson unassisted goal.
Oh, maybe no. The point was Severson had called it a phantom assist. He deserved an assist, and for some reason they scored didn't give him an assist.
Okay. Yeah. We're gonna stand for Vasily Podkolzin over there, folks. That much is clear. We're gonna give him assists where none exist. We're gonna make him X factors.
Me and my Russian prospects. You know this.
Oh my God, do you love them? Hey, speaking of prospects, Jonathan Lekkerimäki, who of course is still vying to make Sweden's national team for the World Championships.
So far, so good. He's still getting a decent assignment.
He takes home the award from Elite Prospects as the top junior player in the SHL. This award has been given out for 11 years now by Elite Prospects. Our buddies J.D. Burke, Cam Robinson, that whole crew. Elias Pettersson won this award. Leo Carlsson won it last year, now with the Anaheim Ducks. So he does a round of interviews after this, and Lekkerimäki is asked about his stint in Abbotsford and the North American style game, and he answers, had to adapt to some small details in the game. For instance, the shot, because you're always a bit closer to the goal, so you have to take more shots. I love it. Wasn't about the physicality. Wasn't about forechecking. It was, I'm closer to the goal. I got to take more shots. I can score more goals. Shooter's going to shoot, and he's a shooter, and he's a goal scorer.
He's still on the third line today. They're playing literally as we speak right now, for those of you listening and watching live. On the third line, a lot of the NHLers have joined. Eric Snek's on the team now, and a bunch of others. So the fact that he's still hanging in the top 9 right now, with a lot of the NHLers having arrived, that bodes well for him getting into some World Championship action.
Yeah, I would think he's going to make this team. He was also asked, "Will you stay in Sweden?" And his response, "We'll see what happens." And apparently, it was with a secretive smile. Look, he has to come over next year for 2 reasons. Number one, to get more acclimatized to the North American game, the North American sized ice. But secondly, because the Vancouver Canucks may need him, and probably not going to make the team fresh out of camp, although they are weak enough at winger. And if they don't find more wingers, that maybe there's an outside chance there with a big summer. They lose these next 2 games, folks. You're going to hear a lot about big summer.
Yeah,
from the head coach. But anyways, but also, later in the season, get your feet wet, play a bunch of games in Abbotsford. If it's going well, then you become a call-up possibility. For the Vancouver
Baines / Podkolzin calendar of this year, right, where they both played pretty much the entire first half of the season with the farm club, and then came up.
Something like that. I mean, maybe it happens earlier if injury or ineffectiveness strikes, but yes, I was thinking more something in the second half of next year. I think it's well within the possibility, well within rights that we see Jonathan Lekkerimäki at some point.
Yeah, I think that'd be good. And certainly
could also spend the entirety of next year there, right?
Oh, that wouldn't be a failure.
No.
But boy, would it be nice for the Canucks to get what a lot of NHL clubs are getting out of. And Lekkerimäki's not a surprise player, he's a top end draft pick, but I think at next year would be a surprise. And for them to get contributions at an entry level contract level,
like a Wyatt Johnston, for example,
Stankoven, all, there's Dallas is a few of those examples.
Do they ever? Wow. Yeah, I told you I like that Stars team. Lots happening now in the NHL coaching carousel. There's a story brewing with Rod Brindamore, Campbell Rivers Rod Brindamore, which we will get to later in the program. John Rosen down in Los Angeles said he heard that he's reporting that the Seattle Kraken have contacted Todd McClellan for a preliminary chat, that the Ottawa Senators have also talked to Todd McClellan. The Senators have also spoken with Travis Green, who has interviewed for the New Jersey job, the gig he held on an interim basis after the firing of Lindy Ruff. But because the Devils are interviewing other candidates, they told Travis Green, hey, it's only fair that you interview elsewhere too. So the former Vancouver Canucks coach is a candidate in New Jersey, is a candidate with the Ottawa Senators, and it may well be that there's an opening with the Winnipeg Jets, where our old friend, former Canucks assistant Rick Bowness, the happy Haligonian, had this to say, quote, I take full responsibility for that playoff series. I put the onus on me. There is a team option on Rick Bowness. Needless to say, Jets fans are screaming for his head after bowing out so quickly in 5 games and just getting demolished by the Colorado Avalanche. The other thing that I think needs to be said about the Bowness matter in Winnipeg is at the end of last year, Rick Bowness tore strips off that core group.
Mm-hmm.
And Jets management turned around that summer when many thought they were going to move Connor Hellebuck or Mark Scheifele and re-signed them both. So I don't particularly love Bowness's chances of having that team option picked up. And Blake, to the bigger story here, how crazy are the coaching changes this year? Everybody seemingly threw out their coach this year or is on the verge of throwing out their coach this year.
It's
more than a
big
third
list
of the
already.
league has changed.
Yeah.
I mean, Rick Tocchet is damn near the dean of Pacific Division coaches. Edmonton's made a coaching change. The Kings have made a coaching change. Seattle has now made a coaching change.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And
Calgary's made a coaching change.
When did Anaheim make their coaching change? How long ago? It's older than Tocchett's got seniority on him too.
Who cares?
In Anaheim. Who cares? They are team in the division. I'm just trying to button things down.
Second longest tenured coach.
David Quinn is out in San Jose. Yes. So he's second longest after what's his face in Vegas, right? Cassidy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Calgary, same thing. New. Yeah.
Knobloch in Edmonton.
That's right.
New.
8 teams. 6 of them have turned over their head coach since Rick Tocchet was hired at the end of January a year ago.
Hired to be fired.
Oh, are you ever?
Sounds like
These
a media
days.
game.
Back to Winnipeg. Mark Scheifele's 31. His new contract hasn't even kicked
No,
in.
we talked about it yesterday.
Signed through 31.
I know.
Like what? Oh my God.
Yeah, there are some teams staring at pretty interesting off seasons this year. Hey, speaking about this interesting off season, I saw this yesterday on Twitter, and I had to double and triple check.
Must be true.
Just to make sure that I was getting it right, that I wasn't getting duped. The BC Lions have signed Christian Covington, defensive tackle. Quote, it gives me great excitement to join the team out of a pivotal time in franchise history. We all understand and embrace the goal of bringing the Grey Cup back home. Christian Covington played 9 seasons and 102 National Football League games as a member of the Houston Texans, Dallas Cowboys, Denver Broncos, Cincinnati Bengals, LA Chargers, and Detroit Lions. Vancouver college kid, was part of a 2010 provincial championship team, was BC's best defensive player that year. Went to Rice University on a scholarship, was a 6th-round draft pick of the NFL. The Lions took him 43rd overall in the 5th round in 2015 as a total flyer, thinking we will never see this guy. He is poised for a long NFL career. He's now 30 years old, and he's decided to come home to see if he can help the Lions win a Grey Cup at BC Place this November.
Pretty crazy.
You don't see many 9-year NFL veterans come to the CFL.
Yeah.
Let alone that they're Canadian and count as Canadian players on the ratio. And with Daniel Joseph, Francis Beamy, Lions now have the capacity to play a Canadian defensive tackle. Start with depth there. Maybe use David Menard on passing downs. We got to know Christian a little bit during his time with the NFL. We had him in for a Wednesdays with Blake, if you'll remember that way back when. We used to bring guests in to studio and spend an hour with him on Wednesdays. He absolutely lit up the room. A huge personality, an engaging, fun guy. He's going to be great in the community for the Lions. Already is great in the community when he comes on back to town. Of course, his father, Grover, was an extraordinary CFL player, Hall of Famer with the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Here's the second quote from Christian. He said, "I've continued to follow the Lions throughout my professional career, and it gives me great excitement to join the team at this pivotal time." So welcome back to town. Welcome home, Christian.
Where do you place the chances of seeing Matthew Betts back in the CFL this season?
And
would
medium.
Would he prioritize the Lions even if that happened?
Good question. I think Matthew Betts is in tough to make the NFL and the Detroit Lions. I do think he's got the right head coach, though, because that head coach is a little bit different, looks for a little bit of a different guy, Dan Campbell, right? He's looking for emotional guys who love football.
Special teams too, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
He's going to have to make it on special teams. I don't think he's going to be a rotational defensive end for them, at least not out of the chute. And in terms of would he prioritize the Lions?
Probably want to
I'd
go
like to think so, but
Yeah.
it is just so much easier, particularly if you're joining a team midway through, that you just go back to your home base. And of course, he's a Quebecer, so I would think the Alouettes would probably be the leaders there for his services if he is coming back. But what an extraordinary story and a great get for Rick Campbell and Neil McAvoy and the BC Lions, because Christian's made him a lot of money in the NFL. This is clearly not a financially motivated decision, and that's usually the problem with these guys is, oh well, I'd love to come play. I love playing football, but if that's all you can offer me,
I make three times as much on the practice roster.
Exactly.
Right?
So, anyways,
we were waiting for this. Some breaking news here. If we had a sounder, I'd say great to play it. We do have Nikita Zadorov's post-practice quote.
Excellent on the shirt.
Yes, on Sea Love shirt selection.
What says the fashion icon?
We were curious what his thoughts would be on the large paisley number. Quote, I mean, he has to know better. He's not going to a nightclub in Riga. End quote.
Those arty parties, man.
That is beautiful.
So first of all, it's terrific. Great line. But if you feel that strongly about it, Nikita, why not when a young guy, I know he's not Russian, he's Latvian, but when a young guy from your part of the world shows up, he's got the culture shock of North America, he's got the style and, of course, budget shock of the National Hockey League.
Take him under your wing.
Take him under your wing.
Yeah.
If it so offends you, Nikita, take him under your wing, take him to your preferred tailor, to your favorite spots, and get him outfitted. Full wardrobe. Make it happen.
Get him into one of those t-shirt and double-breasted numbers that you've been wearing. He loves the double-breasted suit.
Mm-hmm. That is something, though, in NHL dressing rooms. We've heard this many times over the years. There's a minimum standard one has to live up to with fashion. Can't be wearing those boys' underwear. Can't be wearing the cheap underwear. And when you're wearing the suit, especially if there happens to be cameras, that suit better be on point. No tracksuits either on the bus.
Problem is I don't know that the suiting on Broadway in Nashville is necessarily going to meet NHL standards either. It's going to be a pearl buttoned number, perhaps, for Artur Shilovs.
Do you think the We Have an Army t-shirt would measure up?
It's pretty good.
We've got an Army, and we've got t-shirts that say that. Nation Gear, gearing you up for the playoff run. You can shop the exclusive We Have an Army playoff tee and more at nationgear.ca. As mentioned, we're going to be at Greta, 50 West Cordova tomorrow, taking in the proceedings, watching the game. Come join us. Fun times, good crowd there last Friday. And, of course, you have that marvelous arcade to spend your intermissions at. It's incredible. The horn blows. Everybody disperses to their favorite arcade game. 20 minutes later, everybody comes back and centralizes to watch the hockey. So come join us, 50 West Cordova at Greta Bar. On the show today, wow. Knew he was doing media. Knew he was quite successful at doing media in his home province. But Max Lapierre delivered us a heck of an interview here. The former Vancouver Canuck, he scored one of the biggest goals in the history of the franchise, Game 5 of the 2011 Stanley Cup Final. If you're not familiar, he calls games en français. He's also part of La Poche Bleue. It's the biggest sports podcast in the province of Quebec. He's part of the Nation Network family. We decided to reach out, say, Max, we'd love to have you on the show, talk about some old times and also get your 2 cents on what you see happening with the Vancouver Canucks and in the Western Conference playoff race. And he was good in the Western Conference playoffs, and he was good enough to join us. And a fabulous conversation. Tells an incredible story about his game-winning goal, the hours after his game-winning goal in the Stanley Cup Final. He also has a very interesting take on if it does happen to be Canucks and Oilers in round 2. So Max Lapierre is going to join us. We'll talk to J-Pat as well about everything Vancouver Canuck, including Rick Tocchet, our adjustments needed at this stage of the game, Artur Shilovs, Nikita Zadorov, Philip Hronek, and of course that power play. If only the power play would show up one more game, right?
One more goal.
I'm just sitting here thinking of how little it would take the Vancouver Canucks to advance, right? If they had held that lead in Game 5.
As Carl Robinson would say, fine lines.
They have one more game where the power play shows up, or one more game where the third line shows up.
Yeah.
Or Philip Hronek arrives in the series, or Elias Pettersson does something.
One step up,
Just
one
any of those
additional
things.
step up from any of those things, and they probably win.
Any of those things, and you probably win the series at some point here. You got 2 more cracks.
Yeah.
Okay. Bet 365. And our bet of the day. The segment brought to you by Bet 365, proud partner of Sekeres Price.
Oh, I was 1 point short with my McDavid yesterday.
I thought you won.
No, 2 assists, not the 3 points.
See, you got greedy. You needed the 3 points. You got greedy.
Got to make it worthwhile.
Stuck with me. I had Wyatt Johnson score 2 points. Came in. JT Miller, he said it earlier in the series. Every time he's poised to shoot, Ryan McDonagh is in the way. The Preds defenseman has led this Nashville block party, and you can bet him the block shots.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see this tab?
I did.
3 blocks for McDonagh in Game 6 pays plus 150. 4 blocks pays plus 350.
Ooh.
on your Bet 365 bet of the day.
I'm going same day. I'm not thinking that the Maple Leafs without Austin Matthews for a second straight game can do what they did to the Bruins in game number 5.
You just going money line here? Or
I'm going spread.
Jazzing it up?
I'm going spread. I think the Bruins can cover the goal and a half. So Bruins by 2
netter.
plus 210. Again, that's the thing. It's a big number. That's a big number. For plus 210, you've got my attention. Take the Bruins.
Open an account with Bet365 today and bet on a huge range of markets. So whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Use code VANBONUS, altogether all one word, when opening that account. Max Lapierre, former Vancouver Canuck, current broadcaster in Quebec, going to join us next. Northlands Golf Course. Download the free app and book tee times with a touch of your thumb. And while you're on course, open the app for hole-by-hole GPS and track your score. 6 to 90-day reservations. Jump the queue. Lock in your date for $10 per player booking fee. Limited daily availability. Check it all out. GolfNorthlands.com.
The Vancouver Canadians are back at the net. Catch fireworks, giveaways, and Friday nooners all spring and summer long. Get your tickets at CanadiansBaseball.com.
Our next guest played 183 games with the Vancouver Canucks, including 34 in the Stanley Cup playoffs. He scored one of the biggest goals in the history of the franchise. and has now moved into a very successful broadcasting and podcasting career in his native Quebec, where he's one of the members of La Poche Bleue, the #1 sports podcast in La Belle Province. It is our pleasure to welcome back to the show, Mr. Max Lapierre. Max, how you doing?
Guys, I'm doing phenomenal. Thanks for having me on the show.
You're more than welcome. Speaking of doing phenomenal, boy, you've become a natural at this media thing. Well done, monsieur.
Well, it's a lot of fun, right? You guys know that it's pretty tough when you're done playing. You're looking for something to do, and it was pretty. I got lucky. It was easy for me. I think the pandemic pushed me out of the hockey world as a player and helped me being a media person now. Started a podcast with Guillaume Latendresse, which is my old teammate, and we just went from there. We're having fun. We're talking about hockey. We're talking about the fun stuff we had in our careers, and I guess it's the dream after career for me.
You always seem to have an opinion on the ice, so it's no surprise that this has worked out off the ice, right?
Yeah, things are a little different here. I'm a little more calm.
Well, Max, when the trade happened, we're like, wait a second, we got Kessler, Burroughs, and now you're adding this guy to the mix?
Yeah,
Wow.
exactly.
Man, that was the best time of my life. I mean, it was really tough at the beginning of the year, that year that I got traded from the Canadiens to the Anaheim Ducks, and it didn't feel at home in Anaheim. And then obviously when Alain Vigneault, my old junior coach, gave me the call, it felt unreal. I mean, it was great. It was a relief to go in a great team. First of all, what an organization. The teammates were phenomenal. Still remember my first meeting with AV. Just told me, listen, you got Henrik Sedin, you got Ryan Kessler, you got Manny Malhotra. I don't even know if I got ice time for you. So you're going to need to show me a little something. And at the beginning, obviously, I didn't have much. But when we got in the playoffs, I think I found my role within the team.
As people can hear, your English is spectacular. So it wasn't an issue of communicating, but did it feel kind of like home, considering there was a bit of a French mafia here at the time?
You know what? Yes, but the main thing was the leaders on that team. It was just the best I've seen by far. Whatever it's Bieksa, Amius, the Sedins, Luongo. Everybody was a great person. Like, I've never seen that in any other team, any other league. Guys were brothers, like we had dinner all the time on the road. Even at home, they were it's not every day you see stars players taking care of the third and fourth liner. Like, they're so important to the team, and I think this is what made this team special, and this is why they had success, right? If nobody was every role was important to the team, whatever you're a fourth liner or you're a trainer or you're a doctor or you're anybody working at the rink. I've never seen players respect their surroundings that way.
You're not in the room around the league right now, but I wonder if hearing that, is that a dying thing? Like, do you think there's still clubhouses like that, or you go in there and they're as tight as you guys were?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's rare though. Yeah, it's really rare, because I played in many teams, and that doesn't mean guys are bad people. It just sometimes it just doesn't click. It becomes like a workplace instead of a happy place. A little, if you understand what I mean. So, I mean, the leadership is so important in the NHL team, and we've had everything we needed in Vancouver that year.
Well, let me take you back then to Game 5, the 2011 Stanley Cup Final. Canucks won, Bruins no score. You score the goal, and I was thinking, Max, there are been more celebrated goals here in Vancouver, but never before had the Canucks been closer to a Stanley Cup than in that moment when you score that goal to win Game 5 in a 3-2 series lead. Take me back to that night, that goal, the emotion, and everything you experienced.
Well, first of all, like, the stress for that game when it's 2-2 in the Stanley Cup Finals, it's nerve-wracking. It's pretty tough. I remember it was tough to sleep in the afternoon, and it was a different feeling. And obviously, as a fourth liner, you're not going in the game and you're thinking you're going to score that big of a goal. You just want to do your little job, play well defensively, be physical, and then you're going to be happy with what you've accomplished that night. Then I scored that goal in the third period, and I remember I was just praying on the bench. I'm like, there's no way that it's going to go down that way. Like, I'm going to be the guy scoring that one goal in a 1-0 game. And obviously the team played so well, but I was shocked after, because I remember my dad was living with me during the finals in Vancouver, and a lot of friends were coming all the time, and we decided to go for dinner after in Vancouver. And man, I basically needed a bodyguard to go to the washroom. This is all like people were outside in the window cheering and knocking in the glass, and like basically coming and telling me this is the biggest goal in Canucks history, and if we win the cup, you're gonna have a you're gonna have a bronze statue. You know, like it was just a little bit too far. Like lots of emotion, and obviously that's always going to be a special moment for me. I think it's too bad we didn't win, but I mean the experience itself it was special, because I made some really good friends, and it was the best time of my life for sure.
Hey, we've talked about it a lot this year, because once again the Canucks are in Nashville playing the Predators for a series, but you guys go the distance with Chicago. You go 6 games with Nashville before San Jose, and then one of the longest trips in the NHL to Boston for the Cup final. How physically taxing was all the travel and all the games in that 2011 playoff run, Max?
It's tough. I mean, playing in Vancouver, we all know it. There's a lot of traveling, but at the same time, I think this is what makes the group playing in Vancouver special, because we're always spending so much time on the road, so much time on the plane. So you have time to talk to your teammates. You have time to create like a great team bonding or team chemistry. And I think that this is great in the playoffs, especially. You have the time to rest on the road and take care of just focusing on hockey. And yeah, you get tired, but I think this is not something you think about most of the time. Obviously, in the finals was a little different with Boston being the team we faced that year. But no, I mean it's tough. But the grind on the ice is tougher than the traveling. I mean, that year Chicago was, I think, the biggest challenge for us, because it was more of a mental thing. Like facing them in the first round, it was tough for Vancouver at the time to beat them. And I think from there, with that special goal from Burrows, I think that something clicked, and it was just, okay, now we're ready, we're going all the way. And I'm looking at the playoffs right now, and it reminds me there's nothing easy. You know, like, yeah. I think right now everybody's thinking, oh, it's the Nashville Predators, but they're a really good hockey team, and they came in really confident in the playoffs. So it doesn't matter if you win in 6 or 7. You just need to win the series. There's no disappointment. And the loss last night, that happens. They're a great team. They compete, they battle, and hey, as long as you win at the end, that's the way to go.
Well, we're going to get back to this series in a second, but I just remembered that was, of course, the sleep doctor year. You guys had the best road record in the NHL. You were all wearing the smartwatches. Were you a good boy with the sleep doctor and the smartwatches, Max? Were you worried about what your data showed on those smartwatches?
No, not really. I mean, it was scary at the beginning. Guys were like, "What? Like, do they know everything about us? Like, like what time we get up or what time we're coming in?" But at the end of the day, I think this is what's special in Vancouver. They always take care of their players, and they want to make sure they're ready to perform at the highest level. And man, it worked that year. Everything, guys were performing on the ice. A lot of guys had a career season. You know, it was the best they've played in their life. So the management must have done something great.
Is it an art or a science to eliminate teams? You guys had a devil of a time versus the Blackhawks, figured it out a little bit more cleanly versus the Nashville Predators in the second round. 5 games versus the San Jose Sharks, which gave you all sorts of rest before the Stanley Cup final, which of course couldn't eliminate them in 2 tries as well. I mean, is there something constant, or is it opponent dependent? Because this group of Canucks, of course, hasn't been together in the playoffs at all before. And Canucks fans are anxiously hoping they figure out how to eliminate teams, how to finish off a series here.
Yeah, that is the toughest thing to do, is to win the 4th win. And I think it's the teams that adjust the best, whatever it starts with the coaching staff or the players. You need to adjust, and you need to be smart enough to understand that maybe you had something that worked the whole season and it won't work the next game. You know, right. Like this is what make teams. I think you look at Toronto right now. I feel like it took a little too long before they put Wall in net. You know, like they had a tough time with Samsonov. He went in the minors. He came back. So for me, it wasn't a stable position. Just go with your gut. Just go with what is right for the team. Doesn't mean because you have success during 82 games that it works. Just look at Boston last year against Florida. So I think the teams that adjust the fastest and that can live the moment, because the game from last night and the next game doesn't matter. It absolutely doesn't matter even if you're down 3-0 in the series.
The other thing,
I
was going to say, the other carryover is goaltender upheaval. You guys against the Blackhawks had to go through Schneider and Luongo, and some of that was coach's decision, of course.
Yep.
Some of it was dehydration. Does that have an impact on skaters, or do they just assume that whoever's in net, they're going to do their very best, they're going to have our backs? Does the mayhem in net sort of play into you guys at all as skaters?
No, because from the outside world, you see like it's the backup goalie, but from the inside of the dressing room, it's two great goaltender, whatever in which team you're playing, because you go through the grind together, right? You see the backup goaltender work so hard all year and be there for his teammate, and he's always the first one to come in the room and say, "Don't worry, guys, we're gonna find a way." Like normally, backup goaltenders are really positive and likable people or teammates, and you're just happy whoever is in net when somebody has their chance to prove everybody that they're a great player. You want to work harder. You want to do everything for that teammate that was supporting you all year, even if you knew it was tough for him.
Max, you cross paths with Rick Tocchet and Ian Cole with the 2014-15 Pittsburgh Penguins. Tell me about your experiences with both men.
Well, I played with Kohler in St. Louis as well, so he's a great guy. I mean, these type of defensemen, they don't exist anymore. Like they just go out there, they block shots with their face, they give hits, they do everything perfectly within the system. So I think you need these guys to win hockey games. And I think a lot of teams in the NHL don't understand that you don't need to be flashy to win. You need to be able to play your role and respect your role within the team. And I think Kohler is the perfect teammate for that. Doesn't matter for him if he has a goal, if he's +1, +5. He just wants to win, and this is what makes him special. And for Rick, I mean, he's just honest. There's no bullshit with him. He's gonna come in and talk to you and explain his vision, and it's never feels like it's an order and he's got a power position. It's always like, hey, this is what I'm seeing. What do you think? And then I feel like it's an open discussion, and obviously you respect the guy who was a hard player to play against, and he was competing every night. So for me, that's a big difference, and not every player is like that. But for me, people that play the game at the highest level, I have the tendency to respect them a little more, even if I know the other coaches, they do a great job and they work so hard. But when you look at a guy with scarf in his face and a broken nose, and everybody behind the bench, by the way, in Vancouver, it's tough not to listen to them, right? It's tough not to respect them. So yeah, we have a few fights behind the bench, I think.
Lastly, Max, if the Canucks were to win this series and face off against Edmonton in round 2, how would you see that series?
It's going to be about the team, and I think there's a player right now that like in Lindholm, I think he's the perfect guy to play against McDavid and Draisaitl. Right now I understand that it's a tough transition to arrive in a team and you expect to win the Stanley Cup and have a big role, and it's a quick change, and everybody thinks because you're a star player that you're going to come in and you're going to score 3 goals every night. Doesn't work that way. Like it's tough off the ice. Your family needs to get used to it. You need to get used to your new teammates and line mates, your new role, and you always feel that special pressure that you're the new guy, and you don't want to be that guy that ruins it all for everyone. So there's extra pressure there, and I think, and we're starting to see him play better, I feel like. And I think in the next round, if we go to the next round, he's going to be a star player for the Canucks, because he always been in a discussion with the perfect two-way centers with Bergeron, Kopitar, and all these guys. He had great seasons in the NHL, and I personally feel he's going to be the key if ever we face the Oilers.
That's a great show.
Before you go, I heard BX at the beginning of these playoffs talking about the hearing U2 again being used and the towels and all that. Have you caught that on this set? And you'd be forgiven. I only saw it last night or game 4 for the first time. Game 5 for the first time. Have you seen it in this year's playoffs? Did it bring back any memories?
Yeah, goosebumps. That's there's so many moments in your career that every time you think about it, you actually feel like crying. For me, it's those entrants in Vancouver and Montreal with the Coldplay songs. Like I had special moments, Vancouver for me was the period of time where I had to make a decision as a player, which am I going to stay in the NHL and I need to find a role? And there was a lot of stress, but at the same time, it was the best moment. So yeah, 100% when you hear that song, so many great memories.
Yeah, 25 playoff games for the Canucks in 2011, played the full 82 the next year. And for our bilingual audience, we suggest check out Max Lapierre, Guillaume Latendresse on La Poche Bleue. Max, this has been fantastic. Great catch up, my friend. Thank you for the time. Wish you the best going forward. Let's do it again soon, okay?
Thank you, guys. Keep up the good work.
Hey, everybody. If you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now. In a season like this, you never want to miss a single second of what's happening on the ice, and you want to be around your fellow fans, right? Well, Greta Bar YVR at 50 West Cordova, the perfect spot to do so. Hey, if you've got tickets, a great place to pre and post. They've got drink specials every single day. And if you don't have tickets, well, stick around and soak up the atmosphere with all your fellow fans, play all the great video games and air hockey, great air hockey setup as well at Greta Bar YVR. We'll see you there, 50 West Cordova. Hey, you. No, not you. You. Are you an owner-operator? Do you have a fleet of trucks or cars? Well, CalPro Plus might be the dedicated tire program just for you.
Free program includes exclusive deals and savings, price match guarantee, flexible financing, and preferred pricing on everything you drive.
Also, you get a dedicated member support line. That means that you can get questions answered. Also, they'll source and recommend the right tire for you, your application, and your budget.
Cal Tire's network of 260 plus stores are here to help so you can focus on the road ahead. Sign up for free at calproplus.com. Our next guest is a presentation of the Arnold Palmer Design Whistler Golf Club, counting down to opening day, May 10th. We are almost a week away here. The club reminds organizers of groups of 12 or more it's time to lock in those 2024 tee times. The prime times are filling up fast, and just for reaching out to hold that tee, you, the group organizer, plays for free. Whistler Golf Club takes care of the rest. Tell us about your group, whistlergolf.com/groups, and you can follow the spring preparations. The course wintered very, very well. Check out all the bears at Whistler Golf on social. Here he is, our Canucks reporter, Rinkwide Vancouver host Jeff Paterson joins us. And Jeff, we were talking yesterday about what makes you nervous, what makes you anxious for the Vancouver Canucks now that they've lost an opportunity to advance in 5 games and have to go back to Nashville for Game 6.
Well, I suppose the law of averages is one thing that jumped out at me immediately. I mean, if the Canucks are going to wrap this thing up in 6, they're going to have won 5 games in Nashville this year. All 5 of their games. They were 2-0 there in the regular season, and they obviously took those 2 down at Bridgestone over the weekend. And so if they go back there and get it done, that just feels like at some point, I think the Predators feel they've played well enough on home ice. And obviously the Canucks snuck out the 12-shot victory on Friday and then the Music City Miracle on Sunday afternoon. So if you're the Preds, you're probably thinking, hey, we're due. But the flip side of that is if the Predators win on Friday and bring it back to Vancouver, for them to come all the way back in this series, they're going to have won not just 3 games at Rogers Arena, but they will have won the last 3 games at Rogers Arena for a Canucks team that was 27-9-5 on home ice, 9 outright losses all year long. Like they were a dominant team at the Rog, and they got the first one, but the Preds have come to town and won twice now. And so something's going to give here, I would imagine. And if the Canucks can win 5 games in Nashville this year, hey, credit to them. And they don't want any part of Game 7. So the challenge is there for them. And we'll see what they can do on Friday night.
And I would love to look through the annals of time. I don't know how long it was to take me, but like how many times do division winners, again, division winners get upset in the NHL playoffs, but in those upsets, how often do they not have a game where they just look themselves? And the Canucks really, through 5 games, have not looked themselves. Yeah. Aren't they due for a game where the Canucks just look like themselves?
But who are the Vancouver Canucks, I guess, is the question I come back at you with. Because, look, since Christmas, the Nashville Predators had more points than the Canucks did. Like, I think that's lost on a lot of people that, yes, the Canucks won their division and they have the higher seed here. But since Christmas, like, we're not talking the All-Star break. We're not talking the last month of the season. Since Christmas, the Nashville Predators had more points than the Vancouver Canucks. They were one of the hottest teams in the second half. And so, the Canucks had this amazing start and everybody snacked and feasted and got their points. But we know the issues with the Canucks, particularly since the All-Star break. And look, you could be the higher seed, but if your best players don't step up in crunch time, then are you the better team? And certainly with the goaltending drama that has plagued the Canucks as well, the goaltending hasn't been the issue that this series is extended to 6 games, but we all know the names. I mean, Rick Tocchet talks around them all the time. He needs more from 4 or 5 guys, and Friday night's the next opportunity, I suppose, for everybody to get this right. Like, I thought the first period in Game 5, maybe the best that they have looked for a single period, but same issues that have plagued them over the last couple of months. Just can't buy a goal, can't score a goal, can't make enough happen and manufacture enough offense. And the way the Predators are playing, like, the Canucks are going to have to find a way to flip that script and change the narrative here.
And totally good point on who are the Vancouver Canucks. One thing I know that they are not, though, they are not 6 shots in arrears of the 15th best team in shots per game this season. Like, that doesn't make any sense. They're in 16th out of 16 playoff teams, and they are 6 shots back of the Vegas Golden Knights, who are surprisingly the 15th place team. Like that makes no sense.
I feel like the Bernie Sanders meme. I am once again asking a guest if the Canucks can win this series with so few shots on goal.
Well, I asked Rick Tocchet before Game 6, or sorry, before they all run together, before Game 4 in Nashville, the Sunday game. I said to Tocchet, like, at some point as the coach, do you challenge your team to get to a certain number of shots on goal in a first period? Like, let's just set the bar at 10. I
would go really rudimentary like that. I really would. Yeah.
Baby steps, small
he
goals.
Acknowledged that, yes, we need more shots, but I don't want guys just throwing the pucks to the net from anywhere. Like, this seems to be who the Vancouver Canucks are now, is quality over quantity, but it's not working for them. No, and so at some point, I think you have to veer from what you're doing here. I mean, 5 games in and holding onto the puck, the possession, the slap passes, trying to pass the puck into the net, like, it's not working for the Vancouver Canucks. And the proof is on the score sheet at the end of almost every night in this series. So, look, you get deeper into a series and every competitive advantage matters. And quite frankly, I don't know that Rick Tocchet's done enough coaching in this series, enough tweaking of this lineup. Like, he's made some subtle changes. The goaltending obviously forced his hand, but, he took Connor Garland off the top unit power play, put Elias Lindholm there. Power play that hasn't actually been a masterstroke, because the power play, other than game number 3, the power play keeps coming up dry. He has tinkered a little bit, and we've seen the occasional lotto line shift, but there's not much going on there. But I don't think he has forced Andrew Brunette to make any sort of material matchup changes to react to what the Vancouver Canucks are doing. It just feels like Tocchet is content to continue to roll out the same 12 forwards in the same deployment, and that's not working either. And so, look, Elias Pettersson is struggling, right? Like, massive elephant, small room. He's struggling. So he's not getting it done as a center. Like, why not? And I'm not saying this is the way they have to play entire games, but at some point, like, why not put Elias Lindholm back in the middle, move Pettersson to the wing, throw the Predators a different look, like, make them adapt, make them adjust, do something. It just feels to me like these, and like the Predators as the lower seed, like, they seem pretty content to go this way. And so I don't know. I'm just a little surprised that the Canucks have continued just to, Willie D got roasted back in 2015 for just rolling 4 lines.
Fantastic points, Jeff. All of them. Absolutely right, because really Brunette's pretty much done the same thing as well, other than a spot to play Tyson Barrie for a sick Luke Shin. But no, the lack of adjustment and adaptation from Rick Tocchet and his coaching staff is going to be a big storyline if the Canucks blow this series.
We've been going deep into the lotto line stuff, and we'll continue to do so over the next 24 hours. But Matt, at the end of the season, the 80% mark of the season, what was I saying? Lindholm and Pettersson, and then you've got Blue. Do you go back to that? That was the glory days of the season. Bluger with Garland and Joshua again.
Well,
And
I mean,
then
you
you
certainly you could do that. You could put Pius Suter in the middle there. Again, this is just throwing some different looks at the Predators to
Agreed.
force them to adapt, and maybe it draws them out of their comfort zone a little bit if they have to react. Maybe it forces them to play some of their top guys even more than they'd like to here. Look at the way this series has unfolded. JT Miller has seen an awful lot of like Michael McCarron in that fourth line, and while Miller has produced for the Vancouver Canucks and has had some great moments, they haven't crushed that matchup statistically. And this is, I think, part of the context that matters as well. When we look at the Elias Pettersson struggles, guys, like he is seeing the middle of the Predators lineup. Like he's seeing an awful lot of Jason Zucker and Anthony Beauvillier and Mark Jankowski and those types of players. Like at the outset of this series, if you had said the Miller line and the Forsberg line, if that's a push, who's the next best forward in this series? And I think everybody would have said Elias Pettersson, and he's not getting matchups. He's not getting shadowed. He's not getting checked. He is facing favorable matchups. And that's part of the storyline as well that I don't think is getting the recognition and the talk that maybe it ought to here. And you hope that every game is a new game and a new opportunity for him to bust out and break out. But honestly, I don't even know what a big game would look like from Elias Pettersson at this stage.
How do you feel about young Sheilofs? Do you think there's any chance of Casey DeSmith in Game 5? And are you at all worried that UC Saros has found his game and the Canucks are facing a different animal in the Predators' goal going forward?
Yeah, I don't know what to make of UC Saros' series. Like, other than that Lindholm goal from distance early, he hasn't allowed bad goals, but he had allowed too many goals to have his team trailing 3-1, but he was good the other night. And obviously he gives up just the one to Nikita Zadorov, and Canucks didn't test him enough on the power play, obviously. So would still like to see them pepper this guy whose save percentage would indicate that, he hasn't been as sharp as he would like or the Predators would like. So I do think that there is an opportunity there. And the Canucks goaltending situation, look, Artur Silov's been terrific. I guess right now, as I sit here, I'm expecting that he will get the Game 6 start. But, you go with Silovs in Game 6. If it doesn't work, you would then have the option of coming back with Casey DeSmith for Game 7. But by that point, basically a week between starts for Casey DeSmith at a high leverage point in the series. So do you go down that road? Again, goaltending hasn't been the issue. I think the Canucks have had enough goaltending here. You can't expect them to run the power play. You can't expect them to come through late in a hockey game and score goals, and that's ultimately what this team needs. So my gut right now is that Silovs will get the Game 6 start, and he's just boosting his stock here along the way. I think laying claim to the fact that he's an NHL goalie now who has spent this season in Abbotsford, but should be here on a full-time basis, and certainly has done a nice job of padding the resume, has not looked out of place being thrown into a tough situation.
A lot of criticism on Filip Hronek after a couple of opportunities to shoot in which he did not late in the game. What have you made of the defense? I mean, you talk about adjustments. You don't change pairings, do you? Or...
I don't think so.
No.
No, I mean, unless you wanted to boost more ice time for Zadorov. And I'd be in favor of that. But he's already playing a fair bit and coming through. Look, outside of Elias Pettersson, Filip Hronek has been the biggest disappointment for me individually for a Vancouver Canuck in this series. And I sort of go back to that argument that I made a moment ago. If at the outset of the series, we'd had this talk and I would say, okay, Quinn Hughes and Roman Josi, easily the best two defensemen on paper in this series. But based on their seasons, who's number 3? And I think, again, consensus would have been advantage Canucks, Filip Hronek, this guy that came close to 50 points, logged a lot of minutes, had a really nice season for the Vancouver Canucks. Doesn't have a point in the series, just 3 shots on goal, a complete unwillingness to unleash what is a big shot. We know that. I mean, NHL Edge has shown that this guy can fire the puck. And there is some suggestion that there's an elbow injury that's hampering him a little bit, but he is playing every day. He's practicing every day. He's available to the Canucks. The Canucks have been outscored overall in the series and 5-on-5 when he's on the ice. So, you wonder a little bit about, forget the offense, just defensively, not necessarily holding his own in that regard. And look, Nikita Zadorov has skated circles around him in this series, but you go back to the All-Star break, guys, Zadorov has outscored Filip Hronek now for the Vancouver Canucks. Those final 25 regular season games and these 5 playoff games, they're getting more offensive output from Nikita Zadorov, who has been paired almost exclusively with Ian Cole or Noah Juleson, and he's outscoring Philip Hronek, who has been stapled to the side of Quinn Hughes just by being in Hughes' shadow. You should be picking up points along the way, and that's what he did early in the season. There has been zero offensive contribution, hasn't been terrific defensively, and honestly, when we talk about guys in the playoffs, and Zadorov, and earlier in the series, Dakota Joshua, and the meter is moving, and every game you're adding zeros to the end. I think it has to cut both ways. This absolutely is ammunition for the team to take to the bargaining table when they get around to talking contract here whenever the playoffs are over. It's just been really, really disappointing for Philip Hronek, who burst out of the gates, put up all kinds of points in the early going again when the Canucks were scoring a bunch of goals and the PDO and everything else. Guys, he has 12 points in his last 37 hockey games. That's basically a 25-point defenseman over a full season at that rate. And those kind of guys don't get anywhere close to $8 million a season. So it's been a tale of two halves without question for Philip Hronek. And at crunch time in the here and now, I thought he had a chance to be an X factor in this series. And unfortunately, that has not been the case for the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah, well, it brings it to our poll question. Whose stock has changed the most in this series? Jeff, Hronek, Patterson, Shelovs, Zadorov? Feel free to go off the board.
I'd say Zadorov. I think the way that the crowd has just eaten up everything that he has brought. Obviously physically built for playoff hockey, but lots of big guys sort of wilt on the big stage. He has absolutely ramped up his performance beyond the goals, and the only guy that seems to be able to score now for the Canucks at Rogers Arena. But I just think the big hits, just steamrolling McDonough when he stepped out of the penalty box the other night. Talk about the building popping then. He has stepped up in some big moments. And so, I think the fans are on board now. This is a guy that obviously can play playoff hockey, matter of the dollar figure, certainly. But I think there are a lot in Canuck Nation that sort of fear the idea that he may parlay this into, an opportunity to shop himself and have some other teams think, hey, that's the kind of guy that we need as well here. So Shelovs has just done more of what I've already seen from him in his stints in the NHL. And again, I think he's NHL ready. So yes, he has boosted his stock, but I don't think to the degree that Nikita Zadorov has. Pettersson has just been a flop. It has been. 2 points, none at even strength, one on the power play and one on the 6-on-5, and they're both the secondary assists as well. So there has been zero bottom line for Elias Pettersson. That hurts. And quite frankly, I'm bracing myself for if this goes completely sideways for the hockey club over these final couple of games, bracing myself for a summer of nonstop Elias Pettersson talk. And I don't know if I want to stomach it, but I understand the marketplace and I understand the commitment the team has made to this guy. And, it's not just these playoffs. It's been the second half of the season and the All-Star break particularly. So
save us, Elias.
So look, Blake and I had a bit of a disagreement on that 2-on-1 that Elias had in Game 5, where he really loaded up that wrist shot, the really big, long release. You think it was overthinking and just frustration and wanting to get so much on the shot. I wondered if there was some sort of physical impairment there that forced him to shoot it like that. But it's something that caught your eye as well, Jeff. You were telling us on the golf course yesterday.
Well, look, I'm glad he held and shot because Phil DiGiuseppe was the option on the 2-on-1. Right. And so
yes.
I don't want to live in a world where had he passed and the puck had gone to the corner and we all would have thought, what in the world? So I'm glad he shot. You can live with that. But that shot to me doesn't look like the same wrist shot. Forget the one-timer, the wrist shot is so heavy. We have seen him pick his spots, be so precise. And in those moments when he doesn't score, it's the kind of wrist shot that a goaltender has trouble with, and it spills rebounds. This one hit the mask and deflected it out of play. But it just, for me, I go back to the practice day on Saturday in Nashville, and I posted the video of him. Sergei Gonchar was teeing up a bunch of one-timers for Pettersson, and he was unloading these one-timers, but off his back foot, and it just looked awkward. It just didn't look like a guy that was able to put his full body into the shot. And he was still getting them off with some velocity, but it was kind of interesting that somebody sent me some video that he had taken, just a Twitter follower, out at UBC a couple of years ago, where Pettersson was essentially doing the same thing. And the contortion and the body movement and the range of motion on the one-timers a few years back was incredible. The force that he was getting on those one-timers compared to this one, It just night and day, and it didn't look like the same guy, quite frankly. So,
I can picture it in my mind.
It lends itself to the fact that he's playing through something, but a lot of guys are playing through something at this time of the year. And the fact that he's had zero impact, and again, with the matchups that he's getting, it's been a surprise, obviously, and a massive disappointment.
Yeah, he used to be, or he has in the past, looked twitchier, looked more elastic, getting that good torque, that good whip. On the shot.
I can picture it in my mind's eye in the first couple of years. Like,
we saw it in his first game as a Vancouver Canuck, for God's sakes. And it was a constant with Elias Pettersson for some time. Anyways, and then there's the power play, Jeff.
Oh.
Lest we forget about the power play. I don't want to live in a world where I have to watch this power play. They got to steal your line, do something differently tonight.
Yeah, and I get it. Fans want to blame the officials, and the Predators have more power plays. They do. I mean, I think the Preds have been remarkably disciplined. But the Canucks did have 2 power plays in a tight game the other day. Like, do something with those 2 power plays, and they did absolutely nothing. No shots on goal. This time they couldn't even set up. Like, they had just an impossible time gaining the zone and getting into formation. So where earlier in the series it was too much perimeter play, too much passing around the outside, here they didn't even have that opportunity. They could not gain that blue line to set up. And so, JT Miller was having none of it after the game. Like, he called the group out essentially, and that's fine. I mean, I'm glad that he acknowledges that he saw the same things that we all did. It was unacceptable. But Friday night's another opportunity. The component parts are there. This power play ought to be better. My head is still spinning watching the Edmonton Oilers and the way that they corkscrewed the Los Angeles Kings, who, by the way, were one of the top penalty killing teams in the National Hockey League this regular season, and it wasn't a fair fight. Like, I was throwing the towel in at my television watching the Oilers do the thing against the Kings. This was supposed to be one of the areas that the Vancouver Canucks had a wide edge heading into the series, was that the Predators were the 22nd best penalty killing team in the National Hockey League, and that was supposed to matter, even though the Canucks power play has fluctuated and it's had its moments. And then how do you explain Game 3 where they go 2 for 3 and the only 2 goals they scored that night were with the man advantage, and they were different looks. Miller with the shot and Besser the screen, and then Besser on the doorstep and Miller with the sublime pass. Like, it's there. It's there. And the problem is that, Monday morning, maybe it's Saturday morning, but if we're talking about the power play struggling on Saturday, then they're probably playing Sunday as well. And if it gets to Monday morning and the Canucks are done, and we're talking about, the power play and the component parts and all that kind of stuff, somebody just has to figure it out. It's go time. Like, this is where a hero needs to step forward. Brock Besser has tried his best to be that guy in this series. JT Miller right there with him. But more from Quinn Hughes, obviously more from Elias Pettersson, and whoever the 5th member is of that power play. If it continues to be Elias Lindholm, then it's fair to expect more from him as well.
I was going to say that trail leads you winding back to Elias Pettersson, because if that shot's going, I think of back to the Oilers. Like, everybody knows Leon Draisaitl is parked on that goal line in that same spot every single time. And guess what? He scores 1 goal per game, it seems, on the power play from that spot. There's nothing you can do about it. So if Elias Pettersson was providing what we know he can provide from the circle with his shot, if all that's normal, that should be the distraction for the Miller side for his skating downhill towards the net shot. I mean, it seemingly all leads us back to Elias Pettersson. And I know that's just a broken record over the last few weeks, over the last few months, but man, oh man.
The power plays now at the point where it's sucking life and momentum out of the team. It's not just that they're not converting, but it's actually a negative asset at this stage of the game. Speaking of Edmonton, Jeff, you care to dare look forward to round 2?
No,
they've got their hands full
you have your
full fight with the Nashville Predators. The Oilers, I mean, I'm glad that the Oilers are going to get some rest here, because they're going to need it, obviously. Yeah. Whoever they face, whoever survives this battle between the Canucks and the Preds, the Oilers are going to have to be well rested. Maybe you can ice them. Maybe you can take some of the momentum off that power play, the way it was going, if they don't play for a little while here. But no, if anybody is allowing themselves to think about round 2 at this point, park that. It is all about game number 6 for the Vancouver Canucks and finding a way to break out and get to dare I say, 3 goals. That feels like it would be an awful lot, but they did get 4, including the overtime winner there in the last game in Nashville, and they have scored 4 twice in this series, including the empty netter in game 1. But, I'm with you, Blake. Like, all roads lead back to Elias Pettersson, but in all these tight games, anybody can be the hero. Like, Nils Höglander can show up and score a goal like he did 24 times in the regular season.
Sure.
Connor Garland, who is hustling and has had a couple of moments, but a 20-goal scorer. Mikheyev, forget that. But there are enough guys. Dakota Joshua, I think, has been kind of disappointing, quite frankly, since the third period of the first game. And in a series that's been big and strong and physical, I mean, that plays right into his hands. But I think he's been remarkably quiet, and obviously took the penalty the other night that led to the power play goal. So there was a negative impact in that regard. So there's another guy that I look at that I know there's more for Dakota Joshua to give. And the clock is ticking here towards the end of this series and possibly the end of the season. So, don't save it. Don't leave it in the bag. It's go time for everybody that's putting on a Canuck uniform for Friday night.
We talked about the rest if they had been able to wrap it up on Tuesday. Well, you do all the math here. They're still not beginning till next Tuesday, you would think, the next round. You win on Friday. You still got Saturday, Sunday, Monday off. You still get a good little break. There's still a dangling carrot there to make sure that you don't go to game 7 and give yourself no rest. There's still a real benefit to wrapping this thing up on Friday in game 6 rather than.
Yeah, and look, by virtue of winning the division, they know they would start the next round at home. So they getting home from Nashville, that's not easy, but you're not getting on a plane. And even if it's Edmonton, it's an easy flight, but you're at home. And so that allows you to sleep in your own bed and have all the luxuries of Rogers Arena and the training facilities and everything else. So you're right. I mean, there are absolutely some advantages. Missed a huge opportunity on Tuesday, but the opportunity is still there. They're the team that can advance. The Predators, there is no tomorrow without a win tomorrow. So, as much as it was a tough one to swallow on Tuesday night, they just got to park that and do whatever it is that they have to do to grind out the victory on Friday at Bridgestone Arena.
We look forward to it. We look forward to talking to you next, Jeff. Thank you for this, and we'll catch up next week.
All right, guys. Enjoy the game and have a great weekend.
Yeah, of course, we'll be listening to Rinkwide, watching Rinkwide Vancouver after Game 6 on Friday. It's a 4 p.m. start Pacific time. Hey, everybody. If you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.